Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing inspiring stories from business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate investors on the pursuit of wealth and financial freedom. Inspire to Invest is brought to you by Share, a US-based platform to help you invest in rental properties across the United States completely remotely. Hey everybody, welcome to Inspire to Invest. I've got Rosa Patrinostro here with me today, and she's joining us from Quebec. She is a registered clinical hypnotherapist and subconscious breakthrough strategist who helps high-performing individuals clear emotional barriers that subtly sabotage their decisions, relationships, and most importantly, their results. Her work isn't just traditional therapy, and it's not mindset coaching. Her mission was born from personal loss. After losing her high-performing husband Angelo to a tragic accident, she saw firsthand how unresolved emotional pain can prevent even the strongest from rising to their full potential. Today, she facilitates rapid transformational change through single breakthrough conversations so clients can lead, create, and live with clarity and conviction. So with that being said, how are you today?
I'm good, Serena. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Obviously, in the bio. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to make a little correction. I'm in Ontario.
Oh, you're in Ontario. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, so much for that. I was thinking that you were in
does
Quebec.
it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, no, all good there. So in terms of where your journey has begun, maybe we can just start back in the bio. We talked about you losing your husband, and obviously that's not your entire life, but it was a really specific and defining moment for you. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your relationship with him and just going through some of those complicated feelings of grief and, just trying to overcome them to put you on the path to where you are today.
Right. So Angelo was a high performer. He was um, a high performing athlete in high school. He got his private pilot's license when he was 15,
Wow.
even before his driver's license. And an accomplished student, an accomplished student, right, in high school and in university. And for some reason, he did all these accomplishments, became a builder, did new home build, renovations. He couldn't scale up. And and I didn't know then what the subconscious mind was many years ago because that
Yeah.
wasn't a topic we spoke about, but I knew that there was blockages and so when he passed away, I immediately stepped back and I said, this is not going to consume me. Things happen.
Yeah.
And I know, and I know this was my life with him because I wasn't just grieving his death. I was grieving all the milestones that we lived together and
Yeah.
all the hardships. So I knew that I needed to change my mindset, my way of thinking, so I can rise above this ordeal. So
Yeah.
I researched neuroscience, I researched mindset mindset coaching. I just did the research so I cannot say stuck in my brain, but elevate in my brain.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me into clinical hypnotherapy. And it's not hypnosis. Hypnotherapy is really backed up by neuroscience because
Yeah.
our subconscious actually runs 95% of the show that we're living
Yeah.
and only 5% logic. So a
Yeah.
lot of the quick decisions we make is really based on our beliefs, our habits, our experiences. It's all run by the subconscious mind. So that's where I got to the subconscious mind. That's where I got into hypnotherapy, and things just scaled from there, opened a whole new world for me.
I have a
So
mentor that he used to say, focus on the roots, not the fruits.
you got that.
For that reason, just,
Yeah.
obviously anything you want to see on the outside really starts from within. Now, you went through this very significant circumstance in your life. What were you doing beforehand? Like when you were married, what was your career path or what were you doing for work? Were you at home?
So I worked in the corporate world, mostly in management, business
Yeah.
analysis. So that was my world. I never thought I fit in into the corporate world because I have an intuitive side that kind of made a lot of noise when I was trying to be corporate.
Yeah.
So so I decided, so I did have a full career in that path.
Yeah.
And in 2022, I retired prematurely because I just could at that time.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I'm temporarily not working.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to have a different journey. So that's where I'm at with my career.
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah,
I'm
no, that
on,
makes sense.
yeah.
Now going back to your comments about helping people overcome their limiting beliefs and focusing on things that are subconscious, what do you think are, some of the more significant challenges that people face when they are just getting in their own way?
A lot of it is childhood trauma. So, what is it that went on in your childhood that you dismissed when you were a child because you didn't know any better?
Yeah.
But as an adult, it's running the show somehow. Because there's always that, logically speaking, you know what to do and you know what it is to be motivated and move forward.
Yeah.
But there are times there's that little voice in your head that challenges you and says you can't do it.
Yeah.
So that really has to do with childhood trauma or any other trauma, emotional trauma that you've lived in your past, and you just need to let out the emotions and give these emotions a voice so you can
Yeah.
release them and reframe whatever it is that you've experienced into something better.
Yeah.
Frame it as an experience and not as a trauma.
Yeah, and I think once you're aware of something, then you can change it, right? But a lot of the time, people are repressing these things so significantly that they don't even know that they exist. When you are working with someone, what would a treatment path look like if they are trying to overcome these challenges?
So I have two paths. I did have a protocol that I followed, and I fell into this conversational hypnotherapy, which is a lot more rapid. So, a protocol in the conversational hypnotherapy field, if you will, is we actually start the conversation with whatever hang up is happening or issue. And as the client is talking, I curate my questions
Yeah,
so that I take them off guard and they get to thinking.
yeah,
So they can't just answer, oh, la, 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 la. I curate my question so that it surprises them.
yeah,
And then we go deeper, depending on the question, on the answers they give me, we go deeper and deeper. And it gets uncomfortable because they don't know how to answer initially. There's nothing automatic at this point.
yeah,
So there's a lot of aha moments. And what happens is whatever the problem was is not really the problem because we get to peel the onion
yeah,
and they get to realize, oh no, you're right, that's not really the problem. The problem is this other thing.
yeah,
So it's quite magical to see a person transform and get light out of whatever obstacle they're trying to overcome. And it happens quickly. Usually a protocol of this type, I call it the breakthrough room, within 1 to 3 sessions, there's a shift that happens and it's
yeah.
quick. You don't go through therapy, you don't go through mindset coaching where it can take 6 to 12 weeks. This is
Yeah.
quick. This is 1 to 3 sessions.
Now, is there
You're
anything that I'm sure, like, sometimes these things can be so buried in the subconscious. I'm sure it's easy for people to possibly backslide if they're not keeping it top of mind. Are there any other things that you also give people in terms of like daily tools or practices that they can incorporate so that they don't find themselves, taking two steps forward and then a step back?
That's a good question, Serena. When we do conversational hypnotherapy, we allow the client to find their own solutions. So, what really happens is that I don't give them any solutions, I guide them to their own solutions. So, I'll give you an example. So, when I challenge them with a question, they actually go into a closet and they have a whole bunch of suits, and each suit represents a solution. And he or she decides which suit is best for them.
Yeah,
And then I ask, how would you roll out this solution?
yeah,
What would it look like for you?
yeah,
So I don't need to give them any homework. They already told me how they're doing it. And then what happens after the session, they process the information.
yeah,
So they're actually doing the work to reinforce what was taught or learned in the in the session.
Yeah.
That's how it's different.
Awesome. Well, on that,
Yeah.
we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back in just a moment. Inspire to Invest is proudly sponsored by Share, a US-based platform designed to help Canadians and Americans invest in rental properties across the United States completely remotely. With Share, you don't have to deal with tenants, repairs, or trying to figure out unfamiliar markets on your own. They handle the entire process for you, from setting up your US entities to sourcing vetted rental properties in landlord-friendly states to managing everything post-close with professional property management. It's a done-for-you turnkey solution designed to give you all the upside of real estate ownership without the typical landlord headaches. If you've been wanting to diversify into US real estate but didn't know where to start, Share could be just the partner you've been looking for. Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support. What if I told you your next big client, investor, or business opportunity is already watching you? They just don't know you yet. In today's digital world, attention is currency. Sharing the right content can mean the difference between being seen as an expert or being completely overlooked. If you're not actively building your personal brand, you're leaving money, influence, and opportunity on the table. That is where Executive Lens comes in. We help busy business owners, investors, and entrepreneurs capture and curate compelling content so you can build a powerful personal brand on LinkedIn and beyond without adding hours to your already packed schedule. Through high-quality video storytelling, we help you capture the essence of your brand. So when people see you online, they don't just scroll by, they stop, watch, and engage. Your story deserves to be told. Your expertise deserves to be recognized. And your personal brand, it absolutely deserves to stand out. Let's make that happen. Turning content into connection, LinkedIn leadership starts here. Find out more at executivelens.co. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Inspired to Invest. I've got Rosie here with me, and she's a clinical hypnotherapist. And we're just talking about how she kind of digs deep into people's subconscious when they do have these limited beliefs that are holding them back from succeeding and scaling up and things like that. And before the break, we were talking about what your treatment path really looks like and how you help people get to these breakthroughs. One of the things that I always like to ask people is what's one of the craziest things that they've experienced in life or in business?
That's a good question, Serena. You caught me off guard. Um, I've had somebody come to me um, who had ADHD, is on the road to sobriety, is all over the place, and in order to contain this type of client, you got to make sure you put them in the box. So I never had to put anybody in a box before, but I had to literally put somebody in a box and say, okay, enough is enough. So that gets crazy because usually clients are they participated in the whole experience.
Yeah.
But this person, I had to contain them in order to make them realize that they need to slow down. That's why they're
Yeah.
having so many issues.
Yeah.
Their brain was just on a roller coaster ride. So that was pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. Like, I think when people aren't at the point where they are looking for accepting the change, then they're going to resist, right? And if they are in a situation where they've got overactivity and things like that, then it can be hard to just take a breath and dial things back. So I can appreciate that. What would you say is something that you're most proud of with your business?
Having helped some wonderful people overcome anxieties, and some of them it being like facial paralysis or nerve pain.
Yeah.
Just helping them overcome whatever limitation they're putting on themselves. So every client is a wonderful experience for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, part of this is doing the work in your business, but then there's also working on the business and establishing who you want to be, how you want to find your clients and things like that. How are you finding the balance between, working on the business along with working in it?
So that is that becomes the difficult task because it takes so much time for people to ask for help.
Yeah.
So I know people are viewing my content, but I'm having trouble with the traction
Yeah.
because this is the it's not like having a toothache where you need to go see your dentist right away. This is something that you've left to the side. So it is a challenge. So I need to be a lot more assertive and aggressive to see other channels where I can get more clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where I want to pursue pursue companies where they have upcoming top performers or top performers who are not in their game or something happened and they want to help them make a quick shift instead of
Yeah.
going into the therapy or the coaching, like get the edge off and just let them move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, obviously, athletes work with coaches their entire career. So when you think about people that are in other types of sales performance and things like that, then it's obviously honing those skills, but in a different way. Now, in terms of things like advice, what would you say is some of the best advice that you've received while you've been focusing on this new chapter?
The best advice is consistency. It's just about consistency.
Yeah.
So to be patient and just plow through every day. That's
Yeah.
the best advice.
Yeah, I find that as well, just even in terms of just knowing kind of what you have to accomplish for a day. And there are some instances where things can get a little bit off track, but I think as long as you've got that clarity and structure and the processes in place, it can be a lot easier to maintain that consistency.
That's
Now, in
right.
terms of lessons for anyone that is struggling in a different area of their life, like what kind of lesson would you pass along to them so that they don't wait until it's too late or too much time has passed where they're losing opportunities?
Right. I'd say get help right away. Talk to
Yeah.
a friend, a mentor, a therapist, myself. Just do something to move forward so
Yeah.
you're not stuck in that emotional loop.
Yeah. Now, since we were talking earlier about losing your husband, and I think you had a really great perspective and just sometimes people can really wallow in grief. And, I even have a neighbor, for example, that her husband just took his life, leaving behind her and four young children. And I think she's going through those stages of grief. And right now I think she's in denial with regards to like a lot of different things. But based on your experience, like how did you come to that perspective? Because it feels more advanced. Like usually people might get to that point eventually, but it's not usually early on. So how did you kind of frame
Bypass that.
frame your grief and kind of put it in that context?
That's because I lost my parents at a younger age. So I knew what grief was, and I did get stuck in grief for
Yeah.
several years. And when my husband passed away, I said, I know what to do here.
Yeah.
I know what to do here. I need to rise up quickly,
Yeah.
acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the loss, but this is not just about me. I've
Yeah.
got a family. I've got a family and I need to be there for them. So I did the work and
Yeah.
I didn't go to traditional therapy because that's not where I was at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
So
makes sense. I mean, as someone that's also lost a lot of people when I was quite young, I find
mm,
that the way that I deal with it as an adult is quite different from someone that really didn't have those losses and they're experiencing loss for the first time as an adult. Like I find that just when I compare, not that you want to compare yourself, but I think it's a lot harder to come to terms with if you haven't experienced anything. And then all of a sudden in your 30s or 40s or something or older, like you have a really monumental loss, right? So I think it's important to be
right.
objective. It doesn't help at the time, especially in this instance where it was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
Obviously, if someone has been sick or something, you can kind of
Prepare for it.
come with no trauma because you see someone
Yeah.
literally like withering away in front of you, but you can kind of mentally prepare for it in a different way compared to when it is an accident. So I commend you for having that perspective. Now, in terms of where you want to go, like obviously you're starting this career maybe a little bit later, but what's really your goal in terms of your next steps and your purpose?
So my next step is to actually launch a pilot study to organizations that actually want to help their leaders, their performers or upcoming performers,
Yeah.
and help them get the edge so that they can make decisions with clarity,
Yeah.
so that the emotional trauma or obstacles can be removed and people can move forward. So I want to put out a pilot study inviting participants, clients who want to be able to make a shift, a quick shift. And
Yeah.
I'm going to establish KPIs to see the before and the after.
Yeah.
And in exchange, I would like some testimonials.
Yeah.
So that's my next step. And because I am older in this game, wisdom is wonderful. And I have the patience to move forward with this, and I can offer the wisdom that I've gained throughout my career, my experience.
Yeah.
So that's where I want to go. My life hasn't ended. I still want this challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's something that, oftentimes people think, I want to retire, and that's really the goal. But then people that retire end up maybe not doing as well because it's like they've lost that purpose in their life, right? And knowing that you are helping people in this way, I can see how fulfilling that would be. For anyone that is watching or listening right now, are there any specific pearls of wisdom that you would want to pass along before we kind of wrap up with a couple final questions?
Oh, I wish I would have wrote that down. Let me see. Um, yeah, we should invest. We should, instead of investing in our financials, we need to invest in our emotional state. I think that comes first before we can actually be the investor we want to be.
Yeah.
So invest in our emotional well-being so that we can thrive and
Yeah.
rise and elevate.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually watching a video earlier and it was talking about, how we really create our own reality. And it was talking about the law of assumption. So just kind of again framing your mind in that way. Like if you want to be successful, you just assume that you're going to be successful. And one example was how Jim Carrey wrote a check to himself for $10 million and put that in his wallet. But then he ended up obviously being like one of the biggest movie stars of what is it, like late 90s, probably early 2000s. And I'm sure he's made tens of millions of dollars at this point in time, right? But it's just these little
Absolutely.
things that, like, if you believe you're successful, like, you will be successful. And if you focus
Absolutely.
on the things that are negative, then, it's like Murphy's Law, like those things are bound to happen, right? So I
Yeah,
think the mindset transformation is really key if you do want a life of abundance and prosperity.
absolutely. It's all about manifesting and believing it.
Now, in terms of quotes, obviously the name of this podcast is Inspired to Invest. So I always like to ask my guests if they've got a particular quote that really motivates or inspires them.
Serena, I really wish you would have asked me to prepare, but the one that comes to mind is actually not the positive one what I'm looking for, but it's you will you will always whatever you fear will always be near. I wish I can translate that into a positive spin, but that's what comes to mind to me right now. Yeah.
Great. Now, for anyone that does want to get in touch with you to learn more about your services, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So they can either write to me or visit my website. So it's elevatewithrosa@gmail.com, or you can go to elevatewithrosa.com and they
Okay,
can reach out to me there.
perfect. So we'll include that in the show notes below. Of course, thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us today. For anybody that is watching or listening, if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and you're following along on social at Inspire to Invest Podcast. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to Cher for bringing us this month's episodes of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.